A436 was started by Brian Nicholls, who unfortunately died in 1996. So we called the project the Brian Nicholls Hampden project in his memory. It was his vision, his enthusiasm which started all this. Otherwise, nothing would have happened to it. It was found in the RF Museum Reserve Collection, which was then at Henlow, in a crate. Brian looked in the crate, oh, I can rebuild that. Bit crazy, but now, as you can see, we have the vestiges of a recognisable shape of the cockpit of a Hampden. Brian started off by restoring the pilot's floor, using all the original fittings on it, and he just made new structure for it. The rudder pedals, the throttle box, all the controls, all original A436. That's what made it viable to actually do a restoration on it. We found a local company to make the box section and the Z section bit, and we built it up, put the pilot's floor in, put the windscreen on in a day. So it came from a pile of wreckage to a recognisable shape in the Hampden in a day. That was a momentous occasion, that was. As the years have progressed, we've added bits onto it as we've got the information. The information we get is from bits of wreckage from crash sites, wreckage from A436. We have limited access to the original drawings, most of which are on slides, which were copied by the Handy Page Association. They're a bit difficult to read because they're not quite in focus, so you have to really look at it to get some of the measurements of the drawings. It can be difficult. A lot of the drawings don't exist because when Handy Page closed down, they destroyed them. So we have to sort of back engineer crash site items that shows how things went together and what shape it was. Well, these drawings are copies of the original drawings of the arrangement of the structure and the skin of the nose of the Hampden. It shows you where all the rivets go on the stringers. It shows you where the skins are, the skin lines, all the joins on there. But the unusual thing about these drawings is they both take from the same side. This is the port side, showing the skin. And this one here is the starboard side, which shows the structure inside. So this drawing is actually looking from the outside of the airframe onto the port side, and this is looking from the inside of the airframe onto the starboard side, the inside of the aircraft. It is rather confusing at times because there are slight differences in the structure, port and starboard, for various fittings on it, and you've got to remember that you're actually looking at the port side or the starboard side when you're actually fitting. The bottom of the aircraft, which we're actually building upside down, that's how it was done during the war, is even more complicated because the port side becomes the starboard side and vice versa. The drawing is the right way round, but what you're building is the wrong way round. So you've got to remember when you're looking at the port side is not to go to the left-hand side of that airframe, you've got to go to the right-hand side of the airframe and work on it that way. It's easy to make mistakes. It's very confusing sometimes. The pilot's floor supports are a classic. They support the sides of the floor. The pilot's floor is, it's got a flat bit at the front with the rudder pedals on and the throttles on it, and it has two side bits that come down to the side of the seat, and they support the seat. And underneath that you have two supports either side, and they're made of 5 sections. You've got two side bits and then you've got some infill bits in. But to rivet it all together, you've got to do it in a certain sequence. You can't just rivet it all together and then fit it in, because it won't go. You've got to fit some of it in, then rivet it together, and fit another bit in, then rivet it together again. This is a big problem about building an aeroplane like this. There are instructions how to make parts, but there are no instructions in what order to stick it together. You've really got to keep thinking ahead, because you might just sort of paint yourself into a corner. The back end of the top of the fuselage is here, and it comes down, it goes down there, along there, to the main longeron, then on the top, then the bottom half, the observer's compartment, is along here to here, and incorporates part of the bomb bay floor as well. So this half here is actually built upside down, which makes it ever so awkward. And then the two halves are fit together. It's like a big airfix kit, the Hampden, where you got, rather than side to side, you got up and down. You have two bits that fit together, top and bottom at the front, and then the rear fuselage is side to side, and then the top's put on, and the tail boom, that's made in two halves and put together, just like an airfix kit. It's modular construction, where various bits can be made in various parts of the factory, and then they're all brought into the assembly shop and assembled on the assembly line, rather than making it like we are in a jig all in one bit. It eases construction, and it quickens construction as well. And constructing something which doesn't exist, first of all, made the jig to the right dimensions to fit the structure on. Started with what we call the front floors, which is this portion here, which divides the observer's compartment from the bomb bay. This part here is the bomb bay. This frame here, there was no drawings existed of this, giving you the dimensions of it. And going forwards, there was no drawings for this frame at all. There was limited drawings for that one, there was full drawings for the next three forwards. Worked out the dimensions of that one basically by revising the measurements of this frame. This frame here, there was no measurements whatsoever, didn't have a clue what shape it'd be. I have got one off the Canadian Hampden, but it was too badly damaged to make any measurements from. And I suddenly realised if this is the front frame of the bomb bay, then the back frame, which is frame 17, should be the same dimensions. Checked that, got the drawings for that, and it turned out to be right. Now I had the dimensions for this one and the dimensions for that one, no drawings for that one, so it was a case of putting a straight edge in between here and here and shaping this frame to fit. It's all inventing, basically. When you've got no drawings, you've got to try and work out in what shape it should be. The front floors, there's another part which comes here which makes the top of the bomb bay and the floor for the observer to get underneath the pilot's seat to get into his position. That was the first part to be made. That was just made loosely on a bench, and it was really pleasing to see it in the end. You actually sort of recognise what it was, and because you haven't got anything to sort of physically look at when you are building it, to actually look at it when you have built it and look at a photograph and go, yeah, I've got it right. So we've got to this stage where we're constructing the top and the bottom half of the fuselage. They're coming towards completion, and the next job we would be doing will be constructing another jig that both the halves can fit on complete, because at the moment the jigs are in the way. The jigs are actually replicating part of the structure that isn't there. So this jig is replicating that top half, and the top half jig is replicating the bottom half. So we've got to make another jig, which will be a final jig where we can move it about and display it on, to actually fit this on to the right way up, bolt that in on the front and the back of the longer arm, and then we can get the top half and simply fit the top half on, rivet that all together, stick the skins on that, cover the join, and then concentrate on the nose section. These fixtures here, they take a aluminium hoop which comes out and joins onto the next one, which is the front hoop of the perspex front end of the aircraft. The jig will bolt onto these and onto the fixtures at the rear. Those fixtures at the rear bolt onto brackets which are on the centre section of the wing. They can be used permanently, but these ones, once these are bolted onto the jig and then we can fit the top half onto it, then we will have to reconfigure the jig to go onto a hoisting point which is on the fuselage back here somewhere. So we can take it off here and make the hoop and do the perspex nose, and there she'll stand for all to see. We can move it about and be on wheels.